All right, guys, I can tell you, I've been excited for a lot of the interviews that I've done, but some just more than others. So, and this is definitely one of those that I've been very excited for. We're talking with Nick Koumalatsos. Did I get it?
You nailed it.
Yeah, I've been working
Great.
on it. I've been
That's
working
great.
on it. I love
Thank
it.
you, man.
I will tell you that I first heard about Nick when I was listening to his interview on John Bernthal's The Real Ones podcast, which I'll put a link to that in his show notes because it's incredible. I love that podcast. But it's one of those where, boy, Nick's story, all that just really resonated. And then when your team reached out, I was like, heck yes. Are you kidding? Let's do this. I want to talk broad strokes and then dive into these things, but you've had some incredible seasons, tough childhood. You served from 2000 to 2012 in the Marine Corps. I did not realize, like, you always hear about SEALs, you hear about Rangers, you hear about Green Berets, all that stuff. I had to do a little digging on Marine Raiders. And my son, I've told you, my son's in the National Guard. When I mentioned it, he's like, oh, they're the badass of the badasses. Like, tell me about the Raiders, and our audience about the Raiders. Cause I don't think there is known, but holy cow, what you guys go through and what you did and do
Yeah.
is amazing. So
Sometimes
how are the Raiders different?
so the Marine Corps is a little history lesson. Marine Corps is sometimes its own worst enemy.
My dad and my grandpa were Marines, so I understand that.
Yeah, so and they've been their own worst enemies. I probably for the last 100 years, but nonetheless, two battalions of Raiders were stood up during World War II for small team insertion into the islands, and they just absolutely crushed it. They were super successful. Really really tough group of men that operated in small teams in small craft to infiltrate the islands pre invasion to set the stage, reconnaissance type stuff. Anyways, very specialized unit, special training, and at the end of the war, they were like, "Well, we have no use for you anymore, so we're just going to disband you." It's typical Marine Corps. And then, of course, Korea stood up, another decade later, and it's like, oh, we're in another conflict. Oh shit, we need a specialized unit to do these special things. So instead of
What
just
should we do? What should we
yeah,
do?
yeah, what should
Yeah.
we do? So instead of training, equipping, and keeping these guys trained up and going and recruiting new people, we had to start from scratch, and that's really what birthed, in some sense, the reconnaissance community. And so the reconnaissance community kind of carried on the lineage from the Raiders all the way up until early in the war in the early 2000s when Donald Rumsfeld said, hey, it's time for, if you remember when SOCOM stood up,
Yeah.
I want to say late 60s or 70s. I can't remember off the top of my head. The Marine Corps said, we're already special. We don't need to be a part of your little club,
Your little party. Yeah.
your little party, because we're already special. So we don't need,
Yeah.
and they really
We
believe
got
that.
our own club. We got our own
Yeah, yeah,
jackets.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
they didn't enter into SOCOM initially. And if they did, then things would, history would be different. Things would be different. But
Right.
for whatever reason, they didn't. And then Donald Rumsfeld said it's time to try out. So they created a specialized unit that they pulled the best of the Marine Corps. A lot of that was from force reconnaissance, but not all of it. A lot of intelligence assets, some signal intelligence assets. And they created this thing called Detachment 1 that was successful. And then that birthed Marine Special Operations Command in 2006, which took 2 units of actually 3, but 2 of the units were Second Force and First Force reconnaissance companies, which was one of my units. And then they turned into basically what is now Second and First Raider Battalion. And then MARSOC grew from that. And then I actually had to come back and I went through selection. So I actually tried out for recon and I tried out so I double tried out.
Like double tried out, right?
Double
Like
tried
that's a
out.
big deal because, like, see, here I want to talk about. I'm gonna flash forward just for a second for anybody that's listening because now you are a wildly successful entrepreneur. You have a huge following. I would say you're not just leading a business; you are leading a mission.
I
And
would
so
say the same.
you have successfully transitioned from the military, which is a very difficult thing, and you're doing that, and I definitely want to talk about that transition, but, you know, this became truly who you were, like, I would
Yeah.
think any kind of military experience, or as I told you, our older son is in the military, but, like, this is an extreme military experience, so, like, it was who you are. Like it became who you were, right? Like,
Yes, and Mitch, a lot, to be honest, to do that kind of job. I'm not saying military in general. I'm saying specifically those type of jobs. You have to.
yeah.
You
Like
have
I would think there's just things that just in your brain you have to shut off
you just
and say,
have to
this is what I
be
am,
a
this is what I
yeah.
do.
Exactly. You have to be a different person. You have to go all in. Otherwise, like, you're not fully there. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to be a special operator and serve on a team like that and do that and live that lifestyle and do that, like, you have to go all in. And that's a weird thing for me to say here, because it's kind of the opposite of what I preach on a daily life. Like, don't let what you do turn into your identity, because it wrecks so many people in that world. Now, there's things that I could have done and guys can do, and I do coach to that now. I'm like, hey, listen, I know you're
Right. Well,
doing this
you're
job.
older, you've got a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
perspective, but at the time, like, that is what you had to do to survive,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like, and thrive. Like, you were
And it was
very good at this.
yeah, yeah, and it was wartime too. So, like, we're
Right.
in you're in the thick of it, and an actual engaged conflict on a regular basis. So
Right.
there's
And
that
you did that.
element as
Like,
well.
I mean, I don't talk to that many people I mean, I've talked to a number of people that have had long military careers, right? But you have very extreme experiences. Like, we're talking multiple tours in very dangerous places, doing really active
Which is
missions.
to me is just normal. That's just
Right. Right. It's amazing what normal can be like if you get
that's
used
just
to it, right? Yeah.
isn't that everybody's life? Didn't
Right.
everybody do that?
Exactly. We all do we get used to our normal, but your normal is way down that spectrum.
Yeah,
Holy smokes. Like,
right.
give people an example of what a mission, like, as much as you could share. Like what would a mission look like?
I
What
mean, I
was
just paint
normal in that
so, like,
time of your life?
this is gonna be out there, but, like, the one that I love to share is, one of the last operations that I was, or one of the last missions, long term, I'm talking 10 months. So me and my friends would load up on motorcycles with all of our guns, and we would load we would drive the motorcycles we would back them up onto a helicopter, and then we would fly into bad guy land, and then the helicopter would land, and then at night, and us on nods on night vision goggles, and
Yeah.
then we would ride our motorcycles into bad guy land with all of our guns and our friends to do work.
Do what you do. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not, yeah, it's not Instacart. You're not you're not delivering hamburgers, right? Like, this is you were doing, yeah, we're getting to work.
And
Like, when I
and
hear stories like that, I'm like,
there's about 12 of us. There's 12 gringos, and we at the time, the entire surrogate force, we had a 314 man local motorcycle gang army that worked for us.
have they ever made a movie? I'm like, I hear a story like that. I'm like, I've seen a lot of movies. That's pretty badass. Like,
I That is actually, it's funny you say that, and I told John that as well, that it would be my dream to tell that story
yeah.
in an actual
Let's put
theatrical.
that out. I know we have
Yeah,
producers that listen. I know you're a producer.
yeah,
Like, that's how you know John was
right,
that you helped with Punisher, right?
yeah.
So I love that. But, like, literally, that needs to be made because, you see these, hyper stunt movies, all that stuff. That's fine. But, like, you hear that and go, wait, that's really happening. Those are real people doing this work.
It's a real story, and just amazing Americans, amazing group of people, honestly. And the guys that we worked with, the local Afghanis, they were great as well. They were just fed up with the situation that they had in their country, and they wanted to kind of take ownership of it. So it was just, the Giants. Like, I am very fortunate to say that I served, with some of the best men this country has to offer.
Yep. Yep. That's amazing. And you're able to do that. Let's talk about, though, that mindset during that time, because I know, you coach, successful leaders and men and all of that. You've got your own wildly successful business and a number of endeavors, all of that. But what did it take to get to that level of focus where you weren't like, because I know you had stuff going on. You're a human, so you're navigating relationships. All that stuff. All, like, it wasn't like the world completely stopped, but I would imagine the level of focus that kind of mission takes
It kind of does.
is next level.
Mitch, it kind of does stop.
Yeah.
the outside world does kind of stop. I'll say this, keep in mind the things that I'm speaking about
Yeah.
is my time.
Yeah.
I want to keep that in perspective.
Yep. That's a big deal.
Yeah, what I'm saying doesn't necessarily mean that's the way things are today.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's I'm speaking from a perspective. There's things are very different now. Like we're not in sustained combat. Are special operations doing amazing things? Absolutely. Are Marine Raiders doing amazing things right now? Yes, they are. It's very different from the time that I was in. We were in sustained combat operations in multiple theaters during my
Yep.
time of service.
Yep.
So when
And
I
you were in
say
constant need. They were needing
yes,
you to do
yes,
what you did. You were in
and we were
constant
under
work.
we
It
were
wasn't like you
undermanned.
were
Right.
down for 6 months and up for 6
Yeah.
months or 3 months. Like you were going a
We were
lot.
we were and we were undermanned. We were
Yeah.
undermanned and overworked. So when I say things like keep in mind that
Yeah.
it's during that time that
Yeah. I appreciate that
yeah.
context. That
So
and seasons matter, right?
seasons
Yep.
matter.
Yep.
So during this season, I'll be honest, everything kind of did stop. Like the world around
Interesting.
me did stop. You
Yeah.
operate within you mentally operate within the world that you're living in. And it's funny because my wife will bring things up about the past or certain time frames and I'm like, "When did that happen? What year did that come out?" And she'll say and she goes, "Oh, yeah," and she looks it up. She's like, "Yeah, never mind." I was like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
exactly. You
I
weren't
wasn't
around, right? Like
wasn't,"
you were in
and
a different world.
even if I was, my like, you understand when you're back home, you're not fully back home, you are still training, equipping, going other places. Like, just because 'cause you're in the States doesn't mean that you're home. So
Yeah.
you're back at it, either going through different, individual training skills or team training skills, or you're doing different level missions, stateside as well.
Yeah.
So you're just not present. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about mindset and like how do you like you don't. This
Yeah.
is why divorce rates are so high. This is why
Yep.
there's problems with children. This is the reason like there's a lot stuff that goes on because the guys are just you're just in it. Now there's some really amazing men that like, that try to balance it as much as possible. But at the end of the day, the family has to know, hey, this is the freaking game. Like, this is the show that you signed up for. And some women go, I actually didn't sign up for this, so I'm out. And
Yep.
that's just the way it goes
Yep.
because
Absolutely.
that's the lifestyle.
Well,
So
and I would imagine like that's what it takes to stay alive.
yeah,
That's what it takes to
it's,
do a good job,
it's a
all of that.
you're singularly focused on one thing. Now that one thing is very, very broad, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that you have to be able to do. You're talking like you have to be a master at parachute operations, diving operations, shooting, air, like patrolling. I mean, every weapon system in the world, you have to be you can't be a professional at it, but you have to know it. Now then there's languages involved, and you know, there's just the list can go on, and
Well,
you have to know all
and
of it.
I know you're a very intelligent person, you're a, innovative person, all of those things, but that had to be like in that season, that had to be incredibly engaging to go, okay, this is what we need to learn, or like, okay, we're gonna have motorcycles and a helicopter, and we're gonna go do this thing, so we need to learn all that we need to do. So that had to be incredibly engaging. And you wrote, I wanna speak to it. You wrote a book called Excommunicated Warrior. And it's a powerful book. I think is, if you're in the military, it would be an incredible read. But even if you're not, like for me, it was really eye-opening, especially with our son being in the military currently. It's like this is an important conversation to have for anybody that's going from one season to another season, especially seasons that really impact your identity, how you
Absolutely.
see yourself and how the
Yeah.
world sees you. And in the book, you really talk about realizing there were stages to making the shift from being a raider where it was all consuming. You were very good at it. It had to be engaging, rewarding, also tragic at times, like extreme, all the extreme emotions, all of that, and then making this shift. So that's definitely something I wanted to talk about because now I would say, you are very successful, but you're also very open about when you first made the shift or started to make the shift, it was bumpy to say the least.
I don't
To
know
to
that
come out of
bumpy puts it light.
the exactly.
I was
That's a
saying
PG-13
yeah, I
version
would
of
say complete disaster.
and
I
that's
mean
but that is it's important because I know for anyone, there's a lot of changing going on right now. There are people that are wildly successful, and sometimes it's a promotion, right? is a change. It's the potential for change in identity. Sometimes getting downsized is the potential change in identity. You know, that new season really causes people to say, wait, who am I? What do I do? And I appreciate your story because it's extreme, right? Like your examples are extreme examples. But what that does is that makes it a little easier for everybody else to learn from them. Okay, I wasn't jumping off of helicopters, motorcycles, but my job changed, that kind of stuff, right? So, like for you, let's talk about that season of making that shift as far as being able to see yourself in a new light.
Yeah, before I do, one thing I want to comment on something you just said is like people go like, well, it wasn't that extreme, so my stuff's not that extreme or that bad. And I don't really like that because an individual's reality is their reality.
Yep.
So their
100%.
perception of what they're going through could be compared to mine could be nothing. It could be me getting a flat tire. But to them, it could be the hardest thing that they've ever gone through. And they feel every bit of that hardship and
Yep.
stress.
Yep.
So I don't ever want anybody to make them feel or have the perception that and even tell themselves like, well, it's not just this. It's like, dude, your reality is your reality. Your hardship and your trauma is yours.
100%.
And it should never be compared to anyone else's. Now, I'm not saying to be a whiny little baby about it and not deal with it. That's not what I'm saying is like,
Right.
and having
Right.
so
They don't
much
get a
empathy.
pass.
Yeah, having so much empathy that you're like, it's like, oh, it's whatever. No, you still got to deal with it, lean into it, be a man, toughen up, but don't compare. I don't want that because I get that a lot. Those messages like, well, I didn't do all the things you did. I like, dude, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like you did what you did. That's
Yep.
great. Like,
Yep.
and it should not be, you don't compare your life to mine. I think this comparing of hardship or comparing of success is what really messes people up.
I agree.
And a lot of it is just BS and fake anyway. So you're comparing something that you have no idea about. Like
That's
you
right.
might see me as a success, but you have no idea what that I deal with, or like, like I still fight with my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I still
Yep.
argue with my kids.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Things are not 100% though. I'm a human being,
Right.
I've just intentionally figured out some things that, and I live with intention that maybe others don't. And I think that's where the thing happens. Sorry to derail things.
No, by no means. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love conversations go wherever they need to go. And I will say that I appreciate, like, you have a ton of engagement and followers. You've got a very active YouTube channel, all that. And one of the things that I appreciate, in fact, I sent one of your videos to my son, our younger son today, about picking your spouse.
Number one thing you can do in your life. when you marry.
100%. And I'm like, just this. Like, we were having a conversation
thing.
last night, and I'm like, just listen to Nick, what he's saying here. This, right?
If you do one
But
thing
I
that I
appreciate
say,
you-
just do this one thing.
Exactly. I was like, but I appreciate how you've given yourself permission to teach from the journey, not the destination, right? Like even in the book, you talk about the 7 stages of transition, and you're pretty raw about each of those stages. And I think, again, I really appreciate what you're saying about don't compare like, well, I wasn't special operations. It's like, now your things that you're facing, your challenges are real, they're hard, and so we can learn from each other. So I love how I never get a vibe from you where you're like, I have it all figured out, aren't you lucky? It's more like, hey, here's how I screwed up today, or here's something we're working on, or whatever. So I appreciate you teaching from the journey and that realness. Let's talk about the Excommunicated Warrior, 7 stages. You name these 7 stages that really is your experience, but as you started to teach from these things, you started to realize, oh man, this is something a lot of these stages aren't just me, right?
Yeah, that was the interesting thing that I figured out, right? It was very interesting. I was like, to start, I thought this was a veteran problem. That's
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's where it really started, was because of my own perception and the work that I was doing at the time. And it all started with helping my friends. So I got out of the Marine Corps, and then my friends started to get out, like, and we just, in the military or in law enforcement, you hit this like 10 to 13 year mark, and guys are just, especially during that time, guys are like, oh, I've hit the wall. I'm done.
Yep.
And so we're gonna make a big jump from there. But I really thought it was a veteran issue. So the Excommunicated Warrior 7-stage transition started with my journey. And then I went to go it was a keynote and it's on my YouTube channel. There's 2 different keynotes. One's an hour, one's 30 minutes.
All right. We'll put links to those. Yeah.
So it was a keynote, and then as I was going around and getting hired to give this keynote, people started coming up to me afterwards and that were not affiliated with the military,
Uh-huh.
talking about how they've gone through, they're at this stage.
Yep.
They're like, I am at this stage. And
Yep.
Mitch, I'm talking about mothers that were her stay-at-home moms for 20 years, and now their kids left, and they're like, I'm a mom, but I'm not a mom anymore.
Right. In a different way, like new season,
Yeah.
different
So
stage, right? Like,
their identity was they were stay-at-home mom, and they took care of the kids, and they raised their kids, and they did,
yep.
which is amazing, and it's like the
Right.
best job in the world, most important job in the world.
Greatest gift.
You know, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I think more women need to go start doing that again.
Yeah.
I
At
think
least one of the spouses, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I know my wife and I, we basically had a race where I was like, all right, whoever's making the most money stays working, the other one stays home. I don't know whether I won the race or lost the race, but I was making more money. So she stayed home, at least, for
sometimes
a
I
window,
feel like that's
window of time.
losing.
Yeah. Right. I look now and go, dang, they had a blast.
Yeah.
Now, stay at home is, I think, one of the hilarious terms because they were never home, right? Like
No.
they were always going somewhere, all that stuff. But it is such a great gift. But that's such a great example, though, of identity.
Yes.
Because that's one that sneaks up on people, right? To go,
Yep.
hey, I'm really good at this. I'm giving this gift, all of that. And now the kids are off out of the house. And it's like, oh, wait, who am I?
And that's really what it came down to. And I mean, I was talking to, sports, like 23-year-old young men
Yeah.
who were in a professional sport, whether it be the NFL, the NHL, and then at 23 years, like literally they don't remember this one guy, 2 guys actually. One was a football player, one was a hockey player. They don't remember not playing the game.
Yeah.
They started at like 2.5 years old in some little league thing, and they don't ever remember not holding a football or holding
Yeah.
a hockey stick.
Right. They don't remember learning how to skate. They've
Not
just
at
always
all.
known
They just
how to
always
skate,
known,
right?
like,
Yep.
walking, and at 23 years old, complete catastrophe at the leg or the knee, and their career's over, and they were both on professional teams, getting paid professionally at 23 years old. So you take a 23-year-old kid, and I
Making
don't mean
that
that they're a kid,
cash.
but they're, we're old
But
enough to
still,
know.
at
You're a
23,
kid.
their prefrontal cortex isn't even connected yet, for crying out loud.
And at 23, their whole identity is gone, and they don't have the tools and the wisdom to process that effectively.
Yep.
And positively.
Yep.
So what it turns into is it's this negative snowball of alcohol and vices and things, and they both went that way. So my book was extremely impactful to them, and then also, of course, law enforcement, first responders, the same thing.
Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, I know there's 7 stages. I'm glad we've got 4 hours to do this. Actually, we're just gonna have to come back because I know I want to talk about
Mitch,
all the
I
stages.
actually taught this for 8 hours one time.
I bet. Like,
8
I'm
hours.
like, when I was diving in, I'm like, oh, man, this could be a week-long retreat,
Yeah.
for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And I do believe that it's universal. And I know we've been talking about, the seasons of your life. And that matters. Like major, or even minor season changes can rock the identity, right? And a lot of times it sneaks up on us, so we don't see it coming. And so then it's kind of a double hit. So for you, I know we could go through all 7, but when you think about the 7, which 7 of the stages surprised you the most?
Probably stage 3, the bowl of bad emotions.
Yeah. Talk us through that. That's
So when I got out, it was funny. A friend of mine, it was on a prior team of mine. He got out and he's actually still working. He's wildly successful at a 3-letter agency.
Yeah. We won't say which one.
You're welcome, America, for his efforts.
That's exactly right.
One of the most badass guys I know in the world, really. And I got out and I said, I was about to get out. I was like, I'm already transitioned. I'm ready to do this civilian thing. And he just kind of laughed. He's like, well, take it easy, man. Like, no need to rush into anything. You know what I mean? No need to rush anything. And anyways, in my mind,
Like that's a 4-hour-long conversation right there. Right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So in my mind,
what do you
I'm
mean?
good.
Yeah.
But then really, and the analogy that I give is you live this life. 1, it's identity. What you do is who you are, right? And then 2, you're living a life of going 100 or 300 miles an hour. You're on a train track going 300 miles an hour. And I think this is in the book. And all of a sudden you have this life change, whether it's retiring from a 30-year career, whether it's leaving the military, first responder world, whether you're a mom, sports career, it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe
Yep.
you just get fired.
Yep.
You've had this
Yep.
long career and they downsize and you're out
Yep.
and it's
Jettison.
what you do.
Yep. Yep.
And the thing is you've been living going 300 miles an hour, and all of a sudden your train goes to 10 miles an hour. But the carts, the baggage carts and the passenger carts that you have collected over this period of time, this is physics, man. They're still going 300 miles an hour, and they smack you right in the back of the head. And this is where all of this, now you have to deal with all the baggage that you've collected, which you thought was okay because you're still moving, right?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
just trailing you, but now it's slammed into you, and you've got to deal with the stuff that you never dealt with. And for me personally, that's what it was for me. Loss of friends, trauma, stuff that I thought that I was like, because you got to think, again, I understand that this is extreme, but it's my story, so I have to use it.
Absolutely.
And I don't want you to compare it to mine. But for instance, we would lose a brother on a mission, what via shot, IED, whatever it is, a bird would come in and pick them up, or we would deal with that however we dealt with it. And then we just continue on. And then you go back to the base and you say your goodbyes. And then the next day you get your kit and you're on the next mission. You just move on. And that seems very callous and cold, but you don't really grieve. You just keep moving forward. And in everyone's own way, there's stuff that happens. And I'm not saying death is the one, but there's stuff that happens in their life that is pretty devastating at times.
Yep.
And we just move on. And if you don't give your body the time to grieve and to deal with that and process those emotions, they will come up later. And Mitch, and I'll explain how they come up. Here's my little coaching part. If anyone has if anybody listening has ever started something and then fallen off the wagon, maybe you going to lose weight and you're
Yep.
like, I'm going to start losing weight. And then it just
Today's
doesn't
the
happen.
day.
You fall
Yep.
off. You
Yep.
go to the gym and you fall off. You want to quit smoking, quit dipping. You want to quit sugar, whatever the vice is that you're doing. I'm going to start. But then your life is this roller coaster ride of starting and stopping. What I found is that is because of unrealized trauma that you haven't processed and dealt with. So you're not moving on.
Mm.
So you self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing. So like, that's one of the things that I do now from recognizing that is the men that I work with, we have to deal with that because we're never going to actually get to where we need to be until we deal with the thing that the skeleton in the closet that's called that you might not even realize.
Yep. Because I love that. I love the analogy of you're a train that's moving when things are moving quickly, and we have a lot of high achievers to listen to the podcast. So I think a lot of people will identify with this, that when life is full and let's just call it busy, right? We don't feel like we have space to deal with some of the stuff we're dragging,
And you
right? Some
probably
of the
don't.
baggage cars, right?
Let's be real. You probably don't. You
You
don't have
probably
the
don't,
time and
right?
space. Yeah.
But it's one of those that, interestingly enough, that's why some people don't slow down either, is they sense that, right? And was like, wait, when I took a weekend and really relaxed, I started thinking of some stuff. It's like,
Oh, I'm
wait,
gonna get
I
back to
don't
work.
know that I want to deal with that stuff. So let's go faster. And
There's a great, obviously I'm big into film and television professionally and also as a hobby as well. I'm a fan as well. And there's a great scene in Peaky Blinders. I don't know if you're familiar with that
yeah,
show,
absolutely.
but Thomas Shelby, the main actor, or that's the character, in one, I think it was one of the later seasons, they basically like win, right? They win their fight and they're like, hey, it's time for Tommy, as the CEO of this company, to go take a vacation. And he does, and he goes into like a bender, goes completely psycho, almost kills himself, and then just decides, yeah, F this, I'm going back to work. And the maid's like, "Are you?"
I get in trouble if I slow down.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
not do
So
that
like,
anymore.
the maid's like, "Mr. Shelby, are you sure it's time to go back to work?" And he's like, "If I don't go back to work, I'm gonna be dead," basically. And so, and in a different way, he's like, "Oh, it's time to go back to work for
Yeah,
sure."
right. Like
And
let's get out
we're
of the way.
watching this scene, and I can feel eyeballs like hitting me in the face, and I look over, and my wife's like looking at me, and I'm like,
Like, are you watching, honey? Yeah. Well, I think that brings what I love about this too is that like we've mentioned it, but as an example, you are also, the leader of Johnny Slicks, which is a multi-million dollar premium grooming products brand, which I do want to hear the story of how that got started. But like,
well, that's one of the best.
like it's not like once you were done with the military, there wasn't any more trauma. There wasn't any more setbacks. There weren't any more baggage, right? Like you're
Oh, I just
still
created
having to
more.
apply this. Exactly.
I just created more.
Let's do that though. Like this, let's just take a tangent for a second. How does a badass like you launch and like create
Start
Johnny
become a s-
Slicks, which is a
become the best
premium
soap.
men's grooming products
Yeah,
company?
become, and that's what I say. I become the best soap salesman in America.
Exactly. You're looking good, buddy. Like if you're just listening, swing over to the YouTube channel. You're looking good. So how did that happen? Like what was that? Like you're like, you know what? Men's grooming. Let's go there.
No, it's a beautiful story. Like you said, I got out and I did what every special operator does because he thinks he can only do that. So I got out and I contracted in a operation intelligence space for about a year and a half. And then it's a story for another
Yeah.
day. My contract got ended on a Monday abruptly, and that's when I woke up and realized like you can be fired in the civilian world. Like I don't have a job.
That happens. Right.
And
Right.
I have a wife and kids and a mortgage and car payments. Holy cow. Welcome to the real world, kid.
Exactly right.
So
And
yeah,
it's Monday,
yeah,
right? Like you don't even have the weekend to think about
no,
it. It's
it's
Monday.
it's
Yeah.
Monday at noon. So then I had a job offer the very next day, of course, because of my network, and I turned it down. I turned it down to start my own company, and that was the start of my entrepreneur career. Now that I just completely failed and like horribly messed that one up for lots of different reasons. But if I had never started that one, I wouldn't have landed on the next one. I wouldn't land on the next one. I
It's
wouldn't be
amazing
here
how many
talking to you.
entrepreneurs I've spoken to that whatever their first endeavor was, went down in flames, a pile of dust with a little bit of goo in there. And they're like so grateful for it because they then learned to build off of that.
Yes.
They built off that pile of dust and built
Too
something. Yeah,
stupid to quit. That's it.
exactly.
Successful entrepreneurs are just too dumb to quit. But I had from the time, so this young man, John Rusheye, my business partner, Johnny Slicks, was messaging me on Instagram like crazy, like 6 months. And at the time I was doing stuff in the media and YouTube. I don't know how, I think I had somewhere around the lines, I probably had 6 companies already. So I was doing a bunch of small businesses. I had some brick and mortar stuff I had going on. I bought a shipping store. I had a gym. I had a whole bunch of different things going on.
You had a
And
gym during COVID.
I had a gym during COVID. That's a separate that's a whole hour to itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, naughty Nick.
Exactly. That's
And
a fun video. We'll put a link to that one.
yeah, go America. Uh, and anyways, he hit me up and finally we linked up and I tried. He basically created a couple of products out of his own problems, like problems that he was having. He's like, I could figure this out. And through a lot of failure by himself, he figured out a completely organic pomade and beard oil, like with no chemicals whatsoever, all American sourced. Him and his wife were selling plasma and blood just to buy like stickers and lids,
Yeah.
and stuff for it. It's beautiful. And so I used the product and I told my wife, I told Allie, I said, listen, this is $1 million product. He had no business. There was no business. There was no website. He was
He's
like,
just experimenting and
he
figuring
was
it
like,
out.
he was making it in his kitchen and trying to go door to door salesman with a silver briefcase, trying to sell these things.
Oh,
Losing his money, losing his ass, man, just
yep.
losing money everywhere. And I tried, and I said, "Hey, listen, John." I said, "I don't know, we don't know each other, but this is $1 million product. Like we're holding on. This is a $1 million product, and that product that I was holding became our first $1 million product actually. And I said, if you're down, I'm interested to scale this with you. Let's build a business around this. Let's get educated and let's build a business around this. Let's educate the consumer and let's take this thing to market and see what we can do. First year we became a 6-figure business, and then it was on and upwards. And then with I think it was within our 6th year we became an 8-figure business.
That's
And
amazing.
we
Because I mean,
expanded.
the stats in restaurants, pretty abysmal. The stats, from what I understand, in grooming products, even worse, right? Like that's an impressive track record in any industry, but
Yeah, we just
especially in the
landed. Yeah,
grooming, like personal grooming products.
Johnny
Like
Slicks
that's
just landed on the
incredible.
Inc. Just landed on the Inc. 5000 for this year as the fastest one of
Wow.
the fastest growing companies
Good
in the
for
nation.
you. That's amazing. That's amazing. So when
70
you
73 in our category and 34 in the state, number 1 in our metro area.
come on.
1400 1423 in the nation. Fastest
Okay.
growing business.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
we will definitely put links to the product line, all that stuff in the show notes. Absolutely amazing. When you think about those stages, the 7 stages and the baggage cars that catch up with you, all that kind of stuff, how is that impacting? How is that knowledge? How is that understanding impacting this season for
So
you?
sink or swim, man. Like at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to is you are going to every single day you are going to be faced with adversity.
Mhm.
Is that adversity going to make you to drown, or are you
Yeah.
going to swim?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like I just intention is everything. I like the word intention. I am going to intentionally attack my day and intentionally attack a project, and we're going to do it. We're going to make the thing happen. And so when John and I met and we founded Johnny Slicks, um, I had already had a failure. I had already had so many failures, and I had already
Again,
filed.
teach it from the journey, not the destination, right?
I already had filed bankruptcy 2 years prior to us meeting. I'd filed bankruptcy, so I was still in my bankruptcy 3-year no
Yeah.
or set whatever it was.
Yeah.
I think I was still actively in bankruptcy. I think for 3 years post that, so I had a
Yeah.
year left on my penance. Um, and so
Which
here
is
I am
also
trying.
that could have been an identity you took on too, right? Like that's a great example
Yeah.
of another season, right?
I love talking about that. Nobody wants to talk
Yeah.
about it. I love talking about all this stuff. All my failures, me being fat, me being unhealthy, drinking. Like I love
Which
talking about
you're
all of it.
not afraid to like show those pictures, especially
No,
with the
because
state
it's
you're in now, right?
yeah,
Like,
Mitch,
come
it's
on.
real, and that's where people
Yep.
are at. And it's like, listen, you're here. Does this sound
Yep.
familiar?
Yep.
You want to go here? Well, this is what it takes.
Yep.
Are you willing to do this work?
Yep.
Like, I
There's
don't
no
care about
pill.
where you're at or even why you're there.
Yep.
Like, I'm not here to judge you,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
are you willing to do this to get to here? If you are, if you raise your hand and say, I'm willing to put the work in, cool, let's do it.
Yeah. Right.
But anyways, so yeah, that's really where that came in down to be is like, hey, listen, all of my failures happened. So we know what not to do. We have a whole laundry list of things not to do. So it just became very easier to now, don't get me wrong, we made new mistakes.
Sure.
And we spent a
Absolutely.
lot, there's a lot of tuition payments made and a lot of money spent to figure out new mistakes. But
Right.
the curve was so much greater. And it was just, we knew that we're going to be a successful business because of what we did. And then I think America as a whole, especially now in the last several months, the consumers are really sick and tired of being sick and tired and being kind of having the wool pulled over their eyes on some of these products and food that we've been
Yep.
utilizing for all these
Yep.
years that are really bad for us.
Yeah. And it's one of those of, yeah, it's stuff that goes in our body, but on our body is as important, if not more important. And, you look at the bottles of lotion or whatever, and the number of words you can't pronounce, let alone know what they are. I agree with you. I think that the timing of what you guys have been doing is amazing.
Yeah, and for legal reasons, I can't no longer say any specific businesses because we've dealt with that too.
Yeah. What was that tuition?
I was
For
getting a
yeah,
little too bold publicly, and it caught their
they come and
attention.
knock on the door.
They came knocking on the door. Anyways, so
Yeah.
we can talk about ingredients.
Yeah,
But
right, exactly.
really, really look at what your stuff, I'll say this, when you have a company that is selling the sickness and the cure, and it's
Mm,
both on their P&L, just be careful who you're giving your money to.
suspect.
Yeah,
Suspect. Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
And I think that, I think that Americans really are starting more American. We even did a survey. The two top things that they appreciated about Johnny Slicks and why they bought Johnny Slicks. Number one, we're all American made, all American sourced, which I kind of expected that.
But there's people that say that, and it like, I know there's ways
But these are
around that too, but,
customers.
like, yes,
These
yes.
are customers.
Yep.
And then the second thing that the reasons why they buy Johnny Slicks was because it was all organic.
Yeah.
And we use
Yep.
real ingredients from our country.
That's a big deal.
And
I love
I
that.
was shocked. I was like, man, the hippie people like about the all organic stuff. You know what I mean? But not the
Yeah,
general consumer. You know what
right.
I mean? And we do have those, right? We do have the
Sure.
very earthy hippie type people that buy Johnny Slicks. But I mean, we also have, we're a very blue collar, first responder, veteran ground. I mean, that's where our first customers came from. Was my audience was very veteran,
And I
first
love how
responder.
you engage your users as well. Like, I saw a recent post where you're like, "Hey, we wanna get into this outlet,
Yeah,
this store, whatever, like, help
they're
us
not
out.
responding to my emails.
Somebody's got it.
Yeah, damn
Somebody
it.
knows somebody. Let's do this," right?
Yeah.
Like, I love that, and
Why
that's
don't you? I'm an important person. Respond to my emails. I want to sell my stuff in your store. Yeah.
I love it. Let me ask this, Nick. We're gonna have to. This is gonna be the first of a few, I think, episodes over time. So I look forward to having you back. But one of my questions that I kept bubbling up as I was reading your stuff, listening to your stuff, all of that. Who's one of your heroes? Who's somebody that inspired you to help you move from one stage to another, or helped you to be more you in one of those seasons? Who's
Man,
one of
that
your
is
heroes?
such a hard question.
Right? And it's just one of them. It doesn't have to be the one, but who's one of your
I don't want
heroes?
to make them feel bad. There's so many of them. God.
Well, that's just proof positive we have to have you back, because then I'll ask you this question every time we go.
So to go back to what you said, honestly, not to be cliche or because it's my anniversary, but my wife is probably
Yeah.
one of them because
Why?
because at the end of the day, who you pick is so vitally important. And if she didn't hold me accountable to become the person that she truly believed that I could be, I never would have achieved the man that I am. And I'm not an easy, I'm not an easygoing guy.
Really? You?
I'm a difficult person to work for and a difficult person to be friends with. I move really fast. I communicate really fast. It's just my personality. And a lot of people kind of find me really, even I like watch videos of myself or I see myself and I'm like, damn, I'm so intense. And that's what I get. They're like, and there's friends of hers that go, Nick has feelings. Like when they find out that I actually have feelings about anything, it like blows their
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
And and so and she's the one that, she's tough enough that she'll put her foot down and we'll have it out. And she's the one that kind of pushes. So none of this, like, do I have mentors and guys that have assisted me and helped me process things and helped me, been inspiration for me? Absolutely. I can name, 5 guys off the top of my head that, my best friend and team and business partner, Josh, Kirk Weisler, amazing, amazing thought leader, travels the world, doing the same exact thing. Carl Munger, I wouldn't have transitioned out of the military without him.
Yeah.
And then I have a bunch of friends that have just been amazing to me. That they're their own, they're thought leaders in their own communities and whatnot. But if it wasn't for my wife being who she was and pushing me to be the man that she saw that I could be and hold it, and it really was me, it was always in me. But because of lack of belief in myself, because of my past, I never actualized it. And even when she would push me, we would get in knockout, drag out fights about it because I didn't want to own it. I didn't want to put the work in. I would say I did, but then when it come to actually like, it would be like an 80% thing, right? And it's like, no, no. She's like, no, you're doing all of it.
We're landing this thing.
We're
Yeah.
landing this thing, right? And it's like, oh
Yeah.
God. And then I would say things and she'd call me on it. And I did. I had this some of the notes that I got. But I had this thing where I had a limiting belief, which I actually created a limiting beliefs course that's now in my community on crushing limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And the reason why I created it is because I dealt with it so much that I thought that I believed that I could be successful. I just had to work 10 times harder than everybody else to get there. So what happens when you believe that? Well, I manifested my own reality. And it was hard to become successful because I was in my own way. And I believe that. So like whatever you believe is they're like, well, this is the way that it is. I'm like, if you say so,
Yeah. You're gonna see more of it, right?
you're
So
gonna see
you were
more of it.
probably creating more work
Yeah.
oftentimes than you needed to
I
because
knew
you
I could be
believe that.
successful as my friends and all the other people that were doing amazing things. I had to outwork them 10 times to get to that
Yeah.
same level. When everything for them just came easy, you know? Right. Sure. But so I manifested that, and I think so many people do the same thing. I think so many people are in their own way. So because of that, she was the one that she like, even when I would hire coaches and stuff, and she would be like, "I'm gonna leave the room. You guys are gonna talk about this thing that you have in your head."
Let's get real.
Let's get
Yeah.
yeah, and she did that, and because of that, I had to, like, look in the mirror and face a lot of those beliefs, and then, they all come from your past, and they all come from your experiences and the things that people have told you over the years, you know, and that
It's all those cars, right?
yeah,
Like that, the baggage cars and the all the stuff, right? That
a
stuff that
and you
starts
build
to get on the train, you don't even
and
realize it's hanging on,
and you
right?
build a
It's
story
trailing
around
you. Yep.
the whole thing, and that story, the more you believe that story, the more it becomes kinda etched into concrete,
Yep.
and it becomes a who you are, and
Yep.
and that can be if it's not the right story, or if it's not written in the right way, then it can become really detrimental. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example how. Oh, I grew up without an active father in the home, biological father. Had a stepdad until I was from stages of 5 to 11. That was abusive. My mom didn't know until I was 11. And then that's when he exited the situation. Two felonies by the time I was 13. And what you could say was I was the product of my environment. Very easily could have gone down that road and then either be dead or be in and out of jail and just be kind of a scumbag at 40 something years old. And then they'd be like, oh, well, he's a product of his environment. Section 8 housing, trailer parks is low, poor income. These are the choices. These are the kids that the schools that he went to, the
Yep.
neighborhoods he was part of, the
Yep.
friends that he had. This was,
Line it up and blame it. Yep.
yeah, line it up and blame it, right?
Yep.
So that's a story.
Yep.
Or your story is perseverance of adversity and all the success in spite of coming from that. So it's really how you frame your story and the story that you tell yourself. And I think so many people get stuck on telling themselves the wrong story and they start believing that story over and then they double down, they triple down,
Yep.
quadruple down.
Well, yeah, they almost have to prove the story's accurate, right? Like even if it's a terrible story, they almost feel like they have to defend the story, and then yeah, like you said, triple down on this is so true. Yeah.
It's funny. I'll have guys on our, because we have a coaching community. We have a community of men called the Agogi, and I've got guys that when they first start, they'll come in and I'll share something, a lesson or whatnot, and then we open the floor and they start talking about it, and then I'll just call them on it in front of everybody. I'm like, you're telling me this, and all I hear is this, and what I see is this, and they're like, "I never even saw it that way." I was like, "Yeah, man, you just keep reiterating that this is the story. You're manifesting your own hardship." And then when you do that and you push back on them and they see themselves in a different, when they can see themselves the way that I see them,
Yeah.
everything changes.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's one of those things I love. I asked you who your hero was. You spoke to your wife and what she does. And then we also got around to that now you do that for the guys in your coaching community, for your friends. Like it's amazing how that kind of love, I would say, right? Like your wife saw you and sees you for who you are and who you could be and draws you into that. And now you
And
get you
Mitch,
doing that to other people too.
she met me. We hooked up at the worst possible time possible. Like she met me at my worst.
Really?
Oh my God, yes.
And
And she
she still
goes,
said, all right, let's ride.
I mean, she wasn't in a good place either.
Yeah.
We were both going through divorces and just not in good places. So we became fun time partners for a while. But at the root of it, um, she heard me on a podcast, and it wasn't even a podcast. It was back then. It was a radio show.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It was a
Before
radio
we had
show.
these weird podcasts.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a radio show. She heard me, and a friend of mine shared it that she knew. That's how we met through a mutual friend on Facebook. And she listened to it, and she said, just listening to me, she's like, I just could tell your heart right out the gate. I could tell what type of man you really were at your core. And I was like, she goes, that's the guy I fell in love with. That's the guy I met. And that's the guy like I wanted to see you become fully actualized become. So yeah.
I'm really glad that you said that, Nick, because I do think that sometimes it's easy to hear an interview like this and hear about your marriage and go, I bet your wife is an angel. She's perfect in every way. She's always been perfect, never had a down season. And that's why she can encourage you and you can be encouraged. Like, I love the fact that, again, you guys have done that for each other, with each other,
Yeah.
but it hasn't always been easy and it hasn't always been pretty and all of that. So I really appreciate you sharing that part too.
I don't know why people act like that's even a thing.
I know but I think
There is no
we
woman or
live in an
man
era.
other than Jesus himself that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the way that it works.
It's not, but it
No.
is. I mean, we live in an era, like one of the elements of the season that we're all in collectively is there is more, we talked about comparison at the beginning. I think there's more potential. Like since the dawn of time, we have compared ourselves to others in the tribe. And they say, with evolutionary psychology, they say that upward and downward comparison in a way is good and healthy, right?
Yeah.
But we are in an era where there is more opportunity to compare than ever. And I think it's also probably more opportunity to create these illusions of perfect world over there, right? So it ain't happening.
And I know because, I'm fortunate enough to know some of the most successful men in America. And I know for a fact behind the scenes, what is out ain't what's
It ain't what's happening.
ain't what's
I
on
have
there.
a friend that took a long vacation with family. Everything looked perfect on Instagram, but they had to sit in separate seats in different parts of the plane on the way home because they were so tired of each other.
It's just
Everybody's pining like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that life. And it's like,
that's
do you?
life,
Do you
man.
really?
That's just life. Welcome to
That's
everyone's life.
exactly right. Yeah. It's like, I love it. Well, Nick, I want to respect your time, man, and I do want to have you back. What's one last thing, especially for somebody that's maybe moving from one season to their next season? Maybe it's a time where the train went from 300 miles to 10 miles an hour. They're, having some deep thoughts on that identity. What's one last piece of wisdom that you'd share?
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Come on.
Nothing changes, nothing changes. You got to change. If you want the outcome to change and you're not doing something in your day-to-day life to create a different outcome, you're going to get the same result over and over and over. So you have to, and it's hard, especially as we get older. It's hard to change. It's hard to change routine. It's hard to start new things and create the discipline and the discipline and consistency to get there. But the one thing that I'll say is create clarity about where you want to go and who you want to be. I think the reason why we avoid creating clarity is because once we create clarity and have a vision of where we're going, we now can identify the things that no longer serve us. And that means there's some things that we're going to have to quit or give up because they do not serve us. They do not give us an ROI. So a lot of times we are afraid of gaining clarity because of that. And once we have clarity, it's very clear on what serves us and what does not, and what's going to help us get to there and what's going to take away from the places and the people that we want to be. So I would challenge everyone to create clarity around their life and their purpose and their desired end state, and then have the courage. All right. The courage, because first comes courage before anything. Once we do the thing, we gain confidence, the loop, right? So have the courage to create the change to go there. Once you're there, then you'll have the confidence. You're not going to have the confidence beforehand.
Yep, exactly. You find the confidence as you go.
That's
It's
right.
not before you start. That's
Right.
absolutely right. And I love too that it's one of those that you got clarity on the kind of life that you wanted to live and all of that. And then what I love about that is you marched towards that. Then things like Johnny Slicks came up. Like you didn't come out day one and say, you know what, I'm gonna have a men's
You have
grooming company
you
and I'm gonna
have
have an organic men, like, no, right? But it's a part of that vision of what you wanted to create.
I think that what people get stuck on is they think that it's going to land in that these opportunities land in their lap, and what happens is your mentor, the friend, the person that's going to change your life is not coming to you. You have to be Dorothy, and you have to walk the yellow brick path. I love that, and I love the analogy because she met all those people. She met the lion, she met the scarecrow on the journey. They didn't come to their house in Kansas. She had to get thrown onto the path and
Yep.
walk the yellow brick road to get to
Yep.
Oz.
Yep.
That's when things happen. You have to move forward, you have to do the work, you have to start the journey, and then everything happens on the journey, and if you realize, once you get to Oz, it's not what you think it is.
That's exactly right.
The destination is not the prize, my friends, it is
Yep.
the journey, so get
Yep.
on the journey.
I love that. That metaphor holds up. I appreciate that. Nick, we're going to put links to everything we've talked about, your businesses, some of the videos that we've talked about, all of that. But where's the best place for people to start to find out more about you?
Just my website, and you can find I'm most active on probably Instagram if you follow social media, but, me personally, I got
Yeah,
teams to do everything else, but I just
exactly. That's fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you really do engage. I love that. I appreciate that. And
If you wanna
that
actually
makes a
talk if
difference.
you wanna actually talk to me and you have an Instagram account, go there. If not, then
Yep.
use my website.
Yep. That's perfect. All right. We'll put all those links. But thanks, brother, for being so generous. I'll look forward to having you back. And thanks for doing what you do. I appreciate you big time.
Thank you.